Live breaking news in his nation. President Joe Biden called for Congress to back his proposals for two significant, highly impactful changes to the U.S. Supreme Court and essentially change the U.S. Constitution. He's going after the Supreme Court, folks. Yep, that's it. The radical woke mafia left who keeps saying democracy is on the ballot is going after now the Supreme Court. In an op-ed published today, this morning, the president outlined his reasoning for pursuing changes that have long been sought by progressive camps. Now, we're going to talk about what he wants, what he's saying, what he proposes. And then I'm also going to talk about, can this actually even come to fruition? What is going to happen? I'm going to show you a clip from a constitutional lawyer, what her reaction is, and then so much more. So make sure you watch the entire video. You don't want to miss this. So in that Washington Post op-ed, Biden writes, quote, "This nation was founded on a simple yet profound principle. No one is above the law. Not the President of the United States, not a justice on the Supreme Court of the United States, no one." According to a White House official, President Biden will call for Congress to back term limits for Supreme Court justices and a code of ethics enforceable by the legislative branch. He also will propose an amendment to limit the extent of presidential immunity, something that President Trump has vehemently opposed for a very long time. His claim is that if you do that, if you remove presidential immunity, you will have essentially a ceremonial president who will be afraid to carry out any real decisive actions and have zero conviction, essentially just being, like he said, a ceremonial president, a kind of puppet, just sort of a face to this swamp machine that has been carrying out their progressive ideas for decades. So on top of term limits, he wants to propose former presidents be granted no immunity for crimes committed while in office. He also cited his 36 years as a U.S. Senator and former chairman and ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. President Biden said that while he has, quote, "great respect for our institutions and separation of powers," kind of hard to believe that, "what is happening now in the United States is, quote, not normal, and it undermines the public's confidence in the court's decisions, including those impacting personal freedoms. We now stand in a breach," the president wrote. "In recent years, the Supreme Court released some decisions that sparked criticism from the hypocrites and progressives." That's my name, by the way, for Democrats. They're hypocrites, hypocrites. Let me know if you like that. Let me know in the comments. Including its overturning of Roe v. Wade, and more recently, its 6-3 ruling that presidents and former presidents are, in principle, immune from prosecution from official acts. It caused an insane uproar with the radical woke mafia left. Official acts versus unofficial acts, there's a huge dichotomy and distinction there. What they were trying to propagate and perpetuate falsely by spreading misinformation was citing that, oh, this gives the president the right to do whatever he wants. It's just not true. Today, the president made clear his resolve to dedicate time during his last 5 months in office to back changes that he says can restore trust and accountability in both the Supreme Court and the presidency, a White House official responded. The announcement was made a week after President Biden withdrew from the 2024 presidential race and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. In 2020, as a presidential candidate, he promised to create a commission to study potential changes to the Supreme Court, as progressives called for the expansion of the Supreme Court. The commission published a 294-page report to the president in December of 2021. President Biden has not acted on that report until now. Interesting timing. Move is the first significant effort by a president since Franklin D. Roosevelt's progressive court-packing plan to advocate changes to the workings of the Supreme Court. President Roosevelt's push for a more favorable court ultimately failed in the face of significant opposition. President Biden's proposal follows years of progressive advocacy push their preferred reforms on the judicial branch, which has met resistance from those who hold originalist views, myself included, widely preferred within the GOP. By the way, just a real quick note. A lot of people have been calling me a right-wing, a conservative. I am neither right nor left. If anything, I love my country. I love America. And I stand for practicality, the fundamentals, the values and principles that our framers envisioned for our country. If anything, I'm more of a constitutional centrist than anything. But let me know what your thoughts are on that in the comments. The White House says that term limits for Supreme Court justices would help ensure that the timing of court nominations is more predictable and less arbitrary, reducing the chance that any single presidency is advantaged by the retirement times of justices. Additionally, a binding code of conduct for justices, including the disclosure of gifts, refraining from political activity, recusal from cases with conflicts of interest, and would improve public trust in the institution, the White House said. Critics, however, including myself, have expressed concern that oversight of justices by Congress would politicize the court. For President Biden to be successful, So that's what he's kind of proposing. Now, this is what he will need in order for these proposals to be successful. So what he'll need is he'd require 60 votes for passage in the Senate. His proposed constitutional amendment faces additional hurdles, including 2/3 support in both chambers of Congress or by a convention of 2/3 of the states, and then approval by 3/4 of state legislators. Told you President Trump responded to this. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "The Democrats are attempting to interfere in the presidential election and destroy our justice system by attacking their political opponent. Me and our honorable Supreme Court. We have to fight for our fair and independent courts and protect our country." The former president also warned that any removal of presidential immunity for official acts of former presidents would risk politicizing prosecutions and undermine the office of the president. What do you guys think of that? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's cut to a clip from a constitutional attorney and what her thoughts are on this proposal that President Tombstone Biden is trying to enact.
Katie Tracys is a constitutional law attorney and former federal prosecutor. She's here now to react. Katie, that's a mouthful. What's your reaction to those plans?
Well, these are very pie-in-the-sky type of ideas. Nothing about the Supreme Court reforms could be immediately implemented, but it certainly shows the position of the Democrat Party. They don't like the outcome of the court's ruling, so they want to change the rules here. So many of these reforms would require, if not legislation, actual constitutional amendments. So again, not politically viable at the moment, but certainly a strong and radical position.
Yeah, such an important point that politically this can never happen because a constitutional amendment requires all three branches of government. I mean, not the three branches, but you need the House, the Senate, and the President. You also need 38 of the 50 states to sign on. There are too many Republicans for this to work. But on the immunity front, let's focus on that. Isn't this a bill of attainder, basically creating a law, in this case an amendment, that targets one person, Donald J. Trump?
Well, I think that would certainly be the argument. And not only that, I think it's a very myopic position. The reason that SCOTUS came down with that immunity decision is because they considered the impact of the presidential office and the idea of prosecuting a president. And so to take away that idea through legislation, which again is not very feasible, would impact so many other things that it would not be a viable office. And essentially there's separation of power issues all over the place and constitutional issues all over the place. So this is, again, just a political talking point, but a very extreme one in my opinion.
Joe Biden says this is all about restoring faith in the Supreme Court. But doesn't something like this, a statement like this, and a policy position like this, cloaked with the veneer of the White House, really end up undermining trust in the Supreme Court in the first place?
Well, that's exactly what's been going on here. They've been sowing distrust in the Supreme Court because they simply don't like some of the decisions that have come out. And that, again, is a very myopic position because many of the decisions from the court are unanimous or they don't fall along partisan lines. So certainly there are some very key issues that Democrats don't like, and that is what is motivating this. But certainly it is disrespectful to that co-equal branch of government from the executive branch.
Curious if you agree with my take. The Supreme Court is the one institution in our country that Democrats have not been able to undermine the way they want, to take control of the way they want, and it frustrates them to no end. Do you agree with that?
Well, absolutely. And when President Trump was able to appoint 3 justices, Biden only got to appoint 1. It's just the luck of the draw sometimes, too. And certainly there are politics involved with that. And it's very disappointing, I'm sure.
Before we let you go, how do Republicans spin this announcement that just came down literally 4 minutes ago on the campaign trail going forward, especially President Trump against Harris?
Well, this is clearly anti-constitutional. What you're proposing, what the Democrats are proposing, would require an amendment to the Constitution. So it's very ironic coming from a party talking about stealing democracy that they are going forward with such a radical talking point.
Constitutional attorney. This is the party, Nez Nation, my fellow Americans, that has touted and unanimously, collectively gotten behind the mantra, democracy is on the ballot this time. This is the same party that has literally nominated somebody for their presidential candidate in 2024 who has not earned a single vote, who is the least popular vice president of all time and has not earned a single primary. And they have taken back channels through the Obama-Clinton consortium, the coalition. I did a video on that. They have essentially conducted a coup, and they're doing it right in front of all of our faces with zero shame. And now they want to go after the Supreme Court. This is the party of democracy. This is the party that says democracy is on the ballot. I completely concur with the constitutional attorney there who says this is completely political. This is completely a motivation by the Democrats and the radicals because they're not getting what they want. Here's more proof. Listen to what Chuck Pass the Buck Schumer said in a real quick snippet that confirms everything we just said.
The Supreme Court is a morass. First, it's an ethical morass. The idea that wealthy individuals, many of them right-wing, can both pay for cases before the court and at the same time give justices gifts or trips is outrageous. And frankly, Chief Justice Roberts isn't doing enough to curb it. But it's a morass in even a worse way. This is a MAGA right-wing court. It's already taken away the right to choose. It could very well go further on that. I fear it will. It's siding with the wealthiest of individuals and the powerful interests over the average working family. And it even threatens democracy when it says that a president can get immunity even for certain acts in the presidency. So this court is just a morass, both ethically and substantively.
Same was the same guy that put cheese on a raw hamburger bun. Remember his 4th of July post? I did a video on that too. If there's anybody who has undermined faith in our institutions, anybody who has undermined trust in our government, it is literally Obama, Pelosi, Schiff, Hakeem Jeffries, AOC. I mean, the amount of lawfare that they launched against Trump when tons of legal scholars said none of those cases had any merits. You just don't like the way that the court is ruling. And you heard what the constitutional attorney said in that interview, said that like most of these rulings are actually unanimous. So you can't say that this is like a right-wing court and they're passing right-wing legislation and they're da-da-da. You just don't like the outcomes and you're crying like a little baby. So now you're going to go after and try to literally upend the Constitution? Ladies and gentlemen, the real kind of crux of why I'm producing this video and sharing this, not only is this incredibly profound breaking news, but what they're literally trying to do, and they're doing it unabashedly, is to upend everything our framers, everything that our founding fathers have embedded in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, for us as a nation, of the people, by the people, for the people. They are literally doing whatever they want to do because only if it coincides with what they want, the outcomes they want. This is the biggest crybaby fest you will ever see from grown adults who have serious power over citizens like you and me, and it's really terrifying. And so this is just a big crybaby moment for the radical woke mafia. And they don't care at all. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. Remember, I've worked with these people. I know these people. I've seen them. I've looked in their eyes, their soulless, windowless eyes. They don't care about you and they don't care about me. I need you to tap the thumbs up, so that we can push this video to as many people as possible. This is the truth behind these Supreme Court reform proposals, which is just a polite way of saying we are sick and tired of not getting what we want. We're a bunch of bitter butter crybaby poopy pants. That's the entire woke mafia party. I pass this off to you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I can't wait to read your comments. As always, if you made it this far, subscribe, sign up for our free newsletter. This is your sure-proof way of never missing out. Become a Nez Nation Insider. It's in the pinned comment, show notes, and description. All you gotta do is just literally click on it, give us your best email, and boom, you'll never miss out on all the live-breaking stuff that the woke media, the propagandist machine, won't share with you. Check out these videos coming up on the screen right here. Subscribe and follow. And as always, may God bless you, and may God bless America. I'll see you soon.